So, Diablo Immortal, probably the world's least anticipated mobile game based on Blizzard's announcement way back when everyone was expecting a PC title to be announced and they were like, don't you guys have phones? Well, yeah, some of us do have phones, some of us really like mobile gaming, and some of us have actually been looking forward to Diablo Immortal for quite some time. It released a day early today, and what I'm going to do today is briefly talk through what it's like to play Diablo Immortal, and then my honest opinion about whether you should play it. This is not a beginner's guide per se, but it is a take from a mobile gamer that has played a good chunk of very high quality mobile games, including things like Vainglory, and I will give you my genuine honest opinion. Full disclaimer though, I do love Diablo. It is the first game I ever played on PC. My 11-year-old self, which is 19 years ago now, quick math, you can figure out that I'm 30, I played a crap ton of Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction when I was growing up. So I have a special place in my heart for the Diablo franchise, but that also means that the bar of quality needs to be quite high for me to be satisfied. So when you jump into it, you'll get into a server, you'll be greeted with a character selection screen where you can choose 6 characters, those 6 classes, all of which can either be male or female, for those of you that have played Diablo 3, you'll basically recognize all the classes. They have a barbarian, they have wizard, and these guys, from what I've seen thematically and playstyle-wise, play exactly like they did on the Diablo 3 variant. We have demon hunter, we have monk, which is the class that I'm going to start off with because I think it's the best for soloing. We have crusader, and then we have necromancer. I'll give you a brief TLDR of all of these classes so you guys can kind of get some idea about what you might want to play. Barbarian. It is what it says on the tin. This is a very heavy weapon wielding character, generally relies on damage reduction and also lifesteal and that kind of thing to sustain themselves. High damage, relatively tanky through sustain, generally a pretty good soloing class as well. We have wizard, as you can probably imagine, ranged, relatively squishy, mostly relies on maneuverability and long range to keep them safe, and in general, all about dealing high damage from a distance. Demon hunter. Probably get the impression that you can see what this is about as well. Crossbow wielding class. Again, high maneuverability, generally quite squishy. If you get hit, you're going to get hit hard, but there is a lot of kind of stealth and slipperiness to demon hunters, and they are very high damage output, and again, ranged class. Monk, this is the class that I think I'm going to be playing when it comes to starting off in Diablo Immortals. Kind of a mix between high damage and tankiness. They have a lot of healing, a lot of damage reduction, generally a pretty good solo class in my opinion, especially basing on what we know from Diablo 3 and kind of some of the stuff that I've seen from Diablo Immortals, and can also act as kind of a supportive class for parties. If you're interested in playing a support type character, monks are usually going to be wanted in group situations because they provide a lot of benefits to team play. Crusader. Generally low damage, and heavy tanking capabilities. A lot of disruption, a lot of tanking, but, you know, they aren't going to be the most sort of insane damage output coming from this class. But again, they are a class that is likely going to be wanted in group play because they're probably the baseline tankiest of all of these classes. So if you're looking to play someone that's going to absorb damage for a team, Crusader is a great one. And then Necromancer. Necromancer is one of the newer classes, one of the newest classes that came out in Diablo 3. You can kind of get the gist from it from the video that you're seeing right here. Ranged, damage dealing, relies on summoning to deal the damage, generally hides behind the wall of minions that you're going to raise to provide them with their sort of almost like impenetrable wall in solo play, but in general the class itself is quite squishy and will take damage relatively easily. So one of the things that I was immediately impressed with when it came to this game is the amount of customization that you can do when creating a character. For those of you that have been fans of the Diablo series, you'll realize that you basically got given a character. You could not edit that character, and most of your customization came through the way that your armor looked in-game. What I've been really impressed with in Diablo Immortals is the care and attention that they've given to actually making a character feel quite customizable. you can pretty much do anything. You've got all of those very normal character creation quirks and panels that you would expect when coming to create a character, which really makes you feel that you can create a character that is your own, which is something that I think Diablo struggled with in the past. And it was a good thing to be greeted with when starting Diablo Immortals. For someone that has played Diablo all his life, being able to customize your character to the extent that you can in Diablo Immortals shows that actually some kind of feedback has gone through, and I think people will appreciate this when picking the game up. So this is what I've ended up customizing my monk to look like, and you can see that from the default monk that you saw earlier, you can really do a hell of a lot to make them feel very much like your own. So this is my monk, and hopefully no one has taken the name Excoundrel, so let's... Ooh, I don't want to do it all capital letters. Ooh. Okay, so I've been playing for about, I don't know, an hour. Mostly just playing around with the different bits and bobs. I'm playing on a OnePlus 8 Pro, by the way. You have to enable 60 FPS manually. I also haven't downloaded all the assets necessary to play the game. But frankly, the game feels pretty fun. The combat is really satisfying. It's very reminiscent, but very fluid compared to, I think, the very early Diablo 3 kind of stuff. Ooh, Pool of Reflection. That sounds good. Especially as Monk, I'm finding that, you know, just getting the little combos between Cyclone Strike and Seven Side Strike is really nice. It feels good to engage in combat, you know, like this. It just feels really fluid to play. It feels very easy to play as well, as you can see. All going really nicely. Kind of want to take advantage of this Pool of Reflection as much as physically possible. Here we go. There's another little camp over here. Bring them all in. Slap them all with Seven Sided Strike. I've got this thing as well. Okay, there's a lot going on here. Nice. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Empowered Shrine. Let's do that. Experience Globe, Experience Globe. Take a helm, sure. I have found that you do have to be, like, equipping and unequipping a lot in the early game. Like, you really just need to be upgrading and taking every gear upgrade that you can get. But what I found that it feels really fluid and really easy to play on what a lot of people assume is going to be an inferior platform to play on. It feels very fluid for mobile. I'm having a lot of fun just kind of doing the very basic, like, you know, little combos that you can do in the early game. And I can only assume that as the game progresses, you know, when you get towards Rifts, it is going to be cooler and cooler to make these combos happen. But I'm feeling the same way that I felt when playing Diablo 3. You know, admittedly, it's a little more streamlined and, you know, one might say a little less complex. Especially as you can see, like, it just basically tells you where to go for the quests. You can, I mean, obviously you can choose to explore the map. You can see here, this is what the map looks like. You can choose to explore it. But I'm just kind of running towards the quest at the moment because I understand in the early game it's going to be a little bit sort of streamlined. But you can see, like, you can get a lot done. I would say it's a lot of things to kill here. 1 second, guys. Oh, it's disgusting. I'm having a lot of fun with this in terms of combat. I think, you know, judging it on the combat alone, especially from the early game, very, very, very cool. And I think works really nicely. We've got to talk to this guy. It has got a very, I will say, it has got a very, like, Blade and Soul feel of quest lines. You're kind of basically, it has got a very kind of like, go here, press that, go here, press that, kill some stuff on the way, go here, press that, go here, press that type feel of questing. But ultimately, it feels a lot more interactive and a lot more fun to make that travel when the combat feels this good. Do you know what I mean? If you've ever played Blade and Soul Mobile or something similar, where it is basically, you're basically a courier service where it's pick this up, go there, go there, go there. And the combat sometimes feels a little laborious. The combat doesn't feel laborious in this because it's Diablo-style combat. You don't get engaged in a 30-second fight with one mob. You are blowing up hundreds of mobs, you know, in one go down the line. And so I think that's one of the things that I think makes this feel good. So in terms of combat, in terms of looks, like the way that the actual game looks, The customization, the customability. I want to show you guys that there are cosmetics that you can get. So I currently have some infernal cosmetics that I can equip. I've also got a couple of different like armor sets that you can equip. They're also I guess there's going to be like portal cosmetics. So there are cosmetics that you can get which clearly are not going to influence your gameplay. And that does bring me on to something that will be a little contentious and is something that we're going to have to discuss, and that is clearly going to be the shop and pay to win. Yes. In like there is a thank you ring, there is a person at the front of my house. The very core crux of this conversation is that you can buy things that influence gameplay. Okay? I don't know what these stones do. I haven't got this far in the game where I can kind of really talk about their overall influence in the game. But the baseline is you can buy things that influence your gameplay. Now, the caveat of that is, and of course, like there are cosmetics as well, so it's not all just gameplay stuff. I bought this like £1 daily reward. This crest apparently can influence your elder rifts and adds modifiers to it. So clearly there are things that are going to either allow you to clear and magic find and get better items, or there are things that are just going to, straight up influence your gameplay. So the very baseline answer to is this game pay to win is yes. However, here is the caveat. For the most part, Diablo is a PvE game, which is player versus environment. In a player versus environment game, the only person that you're often looking to win against is the environment, the computer, the AI, right? Ultimately, if you're not bothered about doing that really quickly and you're happy to take a little bit more time to grind things out, then you don't actually need to pay for anything. You know, the very realistic scenario in Diablo Immortals is that actually you don't need to pay for a damn thing if you don't want to. But of course, that's not how players operate. Like myself, I sometimes like to buy shit, and, I sometimes like to accelerate the way that I play the game. But ultimately, when it comes to Diablo Immortals, it is pay to win. But this is not a primarily PvP game. I'm not sure, if I'm completely honest with you, whether there is PvP in the game yet. I think ultimately there likely will be, because it's something that I think the Diablo players want to have. As part of what they can do. Duels were a big part of the Diablo 2 community buy. So when if PvP were to be the main part of this game, then this game would absolutely be pay to win if you could buy things that influence your gameplay. But the very core baseline essence of it is that if you want to pay to win to beat the computer quicker, then that's just on you. You don't need to, and neither should it really influence how you play the game. Now, because this game has got an end game that involves playing in kind of large parties, then yes, you may find that progress is gated by how good your stuff is, and people who buy better stuff can get into the better parties and therefore progress longer into the game. But if you're not bothered about having that from day one, and you just want to play the game at your own pace, then ultimately don't even bother interacting with the shop unless you really care about the cosmetics. Frankly, for me, I'm probably going to be more interested in the cosmetics than I am going to be interested in buying these little stones or empowering my rifts for whatever reason, right? So I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if you care about accelerating in PvE, then yes, this game is pay to win. And if PvP becomes a large part of this game, then of course there is going to be pay to win elements. But the baseline experience for most players is player versus monster or player versus environment, and you can do that at your own pace. And you don't need to measure yourself against anyone other than your own progress or how quickly you want to progress. The only caveat there is, of course, if you want to be involved in the very high-end level of play and gear or modifiers or certain runes, etc. matter, and that's something that, of course, can be influenced by money. So that's like the baseline. Talk about the shop. You kind of needed to get it in there when we were talking about this game, because I think, frankly, it will be the most contentious point about Diablo Immortals. But that's my honest opinion about it. Yes, it's pay to win, but it's pay to win versus mostly the computer and the environment. If you care about that, then fair enough. If not, just fucking play at your own pace, Fundamentally, however, there is a very, I would say, elephant in the room type situation with this game. You are basically playing Diablo 3 on your phone. I mean, the game is new, the quests are new. They've introduced more customization. There is a different type of end game. Like, the mechanics are different, but look at the scenery. Look at the visuals. Look at the skills, the classes. It is Diablo 3. They have taken Diablo 3 and iterated. Now, that's an interesting point in itself. Many people wish that Diablo 2, or rather Diablo 3, was Diablo 2, but just iterated. Okay? So, to say that this is just Diablo 3 on your phone, and you look at it, it basically is, visually and everything, it reflects exactly what Diablo 3 looked like. But is that a bad thing? They have essentially tried to upgrade on Diablo 3 in many ways. There are some downgrades, I think, in terms of skills and accessibility. You don't quite have the wide range of skill sets that you had for each character, and obviously you have to be a bit more discerning about the skills that you can use, and therefore that obviously strips back layers of complexity, especially when it comes to rotations and how you approach rifts. But ultimately, they've done a lot of good things. They have added customization. There's way more in terms of how you can make your character your own. There is a lot of late game kind of like party work that isn't just trying to push greater rifts to the highest number that you can get them. There are sort of later game raids. There is a lot more social input that they've put into this game. So there are things that they have done a lot better in Diablo Immortals than they did on Diablo 3. So the question is, do you just want to play more Diablo 3, but something that you can play on your phone, has every bit of the enjoyment of combat of Diablo 3, and has a lot of systems that have been iterated on, albeit some things have been stripped away? The answer for me is absolutely yes. I really fucking want to play that. That's why I'm playing it. But I think that's something that you should be aware of, that people who have played to death, played Diablo 3 to the absolute deaths, will probably find this game to be more of the same. And if you love that, if you love more of the same, and you just want to inject Diablo 3 straight into your veins, then absolutely this game is something that I think, will work for you. However, if you were hoping for something new, if you were hoping for a fresh take, if you were hoping for kind of maybe a different look at the Diablo universe, you're not going to get that from Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal is just, copy my homework but make it better type situation that that you're getting from Diablo 3. And I think that is important to know when walking into this game. If you don't care for the Diablo 3 aesthetic, the Diablo 3 combat style, or the Diablo, even with sort of the Diablo 3 mechanics, because there are mechanics of upgrading items and resocketing and reforging, all of that does carry over from Diablo 3, then this probably isn't going to be a game that you're going to massively enjoy, despite how they've tried to fluff it up around the edges. However, if you do like it, then it is, then it is something that I think, be important. I think the other thing that's very interesting is they decided to release this on PC. That to me is weird, because this is basically Diablo 3 plus. This is basically Diablo 3 plus, and they decided to release it on PC, which is very interesting to me, because they have got Diablo 4 in the works. When that's coming out, I don't know. But nonetheless, I think it is a really good game. From what I've played from it so far, from some of the beta tests that I got to do very early on as well, I do enjoy this game. I will caveat, it absolutely dicks my battery life on my phone, like especially if you want to run this in 60 FPS, which you do need to manually enable in the settings. It absolutely tears through my battery life. But it is a good game. And you don't have to spend if you don't want to. I think the memes about this being a cash-in mobile game don't really ring true from the gameplay that I've played. It is actually a really carefully developed, well thought out game that has a lot of complexity and depth to it. And I think ultimately is something that you can enjoy at your own time. There's no pressure in it. And I think if you like Diablo, you like Diablo 3, you're gonna like this game. And that's really my takeaway. It is something that Diablo 3 fans will genuinely enjoy if they're not sick to death of Diablo 3.